16 to be exact, what issues that you have. And they are legitimate issues. Let me go back to, I'll address the comment about not sharing things with my council. I got a phone call back in June from a Mrs. Davis who was, I'm not sure, it sounds like she was contracted to run the concession stand at the ball field. And there was a falling out between her and Orange. And basically she wanted me to get in the middle of it. And was telling me this and telling me that. And after listening to her, a couple of conversations with her, I finally told her, you know, I'm not getting in your personal battles between you and Orange. I left it at that, and I knew that there was an issue there. I didn't share it with any of you, as I shared with you, John, a week ago Sunday. I didn't have the energy to deal with it at the time, so I just let it ride. And up until about 2 weeks ago, she was able to get the emails of the other council members, and she emailed John. I don't know, did she talk to you personally, or was it just all emails?
She sent the original email to all of us, because she probably got our email address from Robin,
Yeah.
and everybody received that
Yeah.
email that she let us know what was taking place. And since that time, I have spoken to her several times
Okay.
about the issues and problems.
And there are definitely, that is definitely an issue. They're definitely in violation. Steve, how do you pronounce his last name? Brzezinski, thank you. Called me a week ago about Orange, and I shared with him that we have some issues. And I said, Steve, we have some serious issues that we need to sit down and talk about. And that's all I said. And I said, we need to talk about it in a meeting. And that's what I told him.
But about that woman too, I forgot that a big piece of that little puzzle was after they parted ways with her, he sent you that email that copied me in on, remember, and said, we had an issue with a parent/volunteer who was running concessions. I thought I re-forwarded that to you. Maybe I didn't. And
Yeah,
so
we got it.
Huh?
We got it. I was copied on
So
too.
that, I mean, that's where it kind of felt like it was a done issue, because he was saying it was a parent/volunteer.
So
And
he's
then she
lying to
comes
us.
back. Then she, right, no, I agree, that's an issue. But
And-
nobody, nobody realized that until she started talking that it was a different arrangement than what he portrayed it to be.
And we would have known that if Fred would have shared that with us, because she was wanting us to be aware of what took place, because she had an issue out there and knowing that we actually own the property and they contract with us. That was the whole part of her contacting Fred originally about that issue out there. And, she has, shared with me, she is filing a lawsuit against them. And that she was wanting to talk to us, and I told her the same thing Fred was. Her issue is that they stole from her out there, and that's what initiated, I guess, the problem between her and Orange. And I told her that has nothing to do with the town, and we wouldn't get involved between her and Orange as far as that. She was telling me that, she originally told me that, I said, well, if something stolen from you and you're gonna file a lawsuit, I said, you better be calling the police and file a report on it. So I said, you can't file a lawsuit without a police report on a theft. So, and in turn she did, and she was wanting to talk to the attorney, and I shared the emails with everybody, including him, and he advised that, we shouldn't talk to her, and that we had nothing in it and whatnot. And she called me back and wanted his information, and I said, you can call the office and get his information from Robin or whatever, but I said, I doubt he's gonna talk to you. I said, he's pretty much shared that with us, and that we don't have anything in this. And she said, well, she said she's filing a suit, and the cards will fall where they may. And that's what she said, and I haven't spoke with her since then. She She did tell me that she had filed a report, and she has also talked to an attorney. She has shared that with me, and she told me that she would be sending me a copy of the theft report so that we could have it, or I could have it. She was I told her to send it here to the town hall. She was going to put attention to my name, so there should be something coming, which, like I said, neither here nor there. It's nothing to do with us, on the theft, if it happened. But the emails that went back and forth, and we were shared, copied on them, and it's between him and her, where she is telling him that we are hard to work with on the concessions and that type of thing. And if anybody from the town was to ask, she was to tell them that she was a volunteer parent, and she is actually she is a business. That we just got rid of another vendor out there that was a profit. He was a business owner and not for profit, and he had to leave. And then they turn around and hire these. Put this go right in there in contract with them. And with that and all the stuff that this contract that we have that was originally in place is the things that they come up here and they told us they would do. You read that contract, there's very few things in there that the town added to that contract. This contract pretty much was their offer in order to get up there. And we agreed about everything in there, and about, as you can see, you know, if anybody wants a copy of this, this is what I shared with the council in an email, and it's public record. And I didn't want to have to share with you, but like I said, there's like 16 different items on here that I have went through the contract, and I address each one, and each of them tells you what part of the contract they're in breach of. And I know that I've missed some of the things too on here, and that I state that at the end of this. And like I said, I've just been through all this with the contract with fire territory, and it's been a battle for 2 years and still isn't done. We got the shaft on that, and I have been out there looking at different things that I have heard, and I've had complaints. I've been out there and I've looked at the complaints, the problems, and they're there. Orange has been informed by Andy on several of them, and they ignore him. That dugouts that they built, it had to be under their building codes. They're in violation of the building codes. They don't meet the codes. Andy even went and showed them what they needed for it to be in compliance. He even went and got them a sample of one and took it to the guy, and the guy's like, okay, no problem, and then he goes and puts up some rinky-dink brackets on there that doesn't meet code. I mean, we have been over backwards. It's cost us a fortune out there, as far as I'm concerned. Whenever they're making the money, I was told they're making $600 per kid that signs up. There's a $125 maintenance fee that they gotta pay, and tryouts cost $25 each year. So they're making all this money, and they have 10 teams. They're dragging in over $60-some thousand easily. That's a low ball number. They're getting our diamond for free. And then I see where in one of the emails back and forth, and I tried to verify this tonight, that they are also subletting to other organizations to come out there and host tournaments and play games on our diamond, which is another part of the breach of the contract. And by doing so, it's causing a liability because we have no insurance, which is part of another breach of the contract, because they're supposed to furnish us all the liability insurances for any teams that go play out there.
So another organization is using it, yeah, I mean, that's.
Yeah.
And like I told you at the beginning, Johnny, and the whole council, I mean, the contract that you have there is not in your favor. So we went through the process to amend it. You guys let me know what you want to do. I think Johnny's right. A lot of these, it is a breach. And if they're having other folks play there that don't have the town as a named insured, that's a big problem.
Well,
And they never came up to talk to us about it.
That's actually the
Like it
problem,
says.
and the only one you should worry about.
Well-
That's the biggest exposure.
Can they
Well-
terminate it, and then if Orange wants to get serious, then revisit it, but,
You
I mean,
can.
would it be better to do it that way?
You know,
You do it any way you want. You can terminate it and not talk to them anymore. You can terminate and negotiate. You can terminate, you can not terminate.
there's other organizations, before, right after Orange, that thing sat empty out there, because it was still under the Atlanta Youth Group, and we did not have control of it. And the way the deed was set up is if the youth group ever went out, it reverted to the town. And it sat out there after the youth group told us that they were no longer in existence and they were giving it back to town. Well, all the legal paperwork and stuff, it sat empty. While it sat empty, there was other organizations that was interested in it, but they didn't know who to contact or whatever, and Orange approached us, and once we got all the paperwork in, they were the only ones that had come up at the time. As soon as we signed it, there was other organizations that come in and found out that it was, you know, we would lease it to other organizations for groups to play.
You know who those were, John?
One of them, I believe, that contacted me is Adam Decker, I believe is the guy that asked me about this. And then we have a local guy, Dylan Baber, that wanted to play out there. There was some issues with him because while it sat empty, while we were waiting on the paperwork to go through, and we told him that we had no authority to allow anybody out there. There was no insurance. We had, you know, he went ahead and started just using it, but, you know, we told him that, you know, we didn't really want him out there. So that, and then he went ahead and continued to play and never did come up and approach the board. And I personally told him, you want to rent this or lease this, you know, I don't feel that the town would have a problem. You know, you got local kids, come up to the meeting and talk to us. He never approached the council, and he continued just to practice and play games and whatnot out there. And then when we signed with Orange, well, then we backdoored him and stabbed him in the back, and he was all irate at us. But, hey, Danny?
Yeah, Johnny, something too that, about that backstop out there. I mean, that darn thing's about ready to fall down, it looks like, and I'm just afraid that some young kid's gonna be out there and get hurt, and then the town's gonna be liable for that. We need to get that fixed.
I approached Steve Bernstein 3 times at the ball field, and I brought that up. I told him it was an absolute safety hazard.
Yes, it is.
You can argue about some of the other things around there that's been shoddily done, whether in fact it's safety, but that's a pretty blatant safety violation right there. I asked him what he was gonna do about it. He said, well, he had an organization come out and they wanted too much money, and Orange didn't have the money to invest in that kind of money. Then he suggested that some people on his team were going to put some poles in the ground, cement them in, and then that never transpired. And the third time I seen him out there, he much as told me that he didn't want to be the spokesman for Orange anymore, and that he wasn't getting cooperation from his staff or members over there. And so I, like Fred, I invited him to a meeting on 2 different occasions, and the last time he told me he wasn't coming to a meeting, period. And you know, I look at it this way. I'm like everybody else sitting here. When they first come to town, they had all this money and everything. Like everybody else, I hope this thing would really blossom into something really good. I really did. And I'm going to be frank and honest. At first, I disagreed with Johnny. Johnny came up with some legality points, shoddy work, so did Andy. And I didn't disagree with him. I just simply closed my eyes real tight. Now, maybe that was wrong on my part, hoping everything would work out. But the situation kept getting worse and worse and worse, and even worser and worser, if there's such a word. And I'm at the place now. Somebody asked me here a couple weeks ago, or said to me that it's the councilman's job to save townspeople money. That's true. It is. We're supposed to be good stewards. But it's also my job to improve the quality of life for everybody in this town, and to maintain and upkeep all town property. That's part of our job. And I personally cannot see for the life of me how that Orange, with everything that we've had to face, everything we've had to deal with, they bring a big crowd in here. When the game's over, then people aren't coming into town. They're going right back out on 19 and going somewhere else. And unless somebody can show me how all this is improving the quality of life for the people who live right here in Atlanta Township, I'd like to see it. And if you can't show me, I'm going to tell you right now, I'm in favor of getting rid of them. I'm tired of messing with him. I've invited him, and so has Fred, and so has anybody who's ever dealt with him, to come over. And it's a place now you can't even converse with the guy. And I don't know how much control he has on his end even to get stuff done. I mean, I don't know who has the authority over there.
Is there any?
So I'm in favor, I'm telling you right now, I'm in favor of just, we've invested around 10 grand of our town's money, approximately 10 grand, I think. We just bought a $2,000 gate that hadn't even been put up yet.
It's done, I forgot to
Is
put
it?
in my report, I called them today.
So looking at this situation, even from a real estate point of view,
We better get that semi.
the money we've invested, I can't, to my way of thinking, I can't see a $10,000 improvement on the real estate out there at Ball Diamond from the time we started investing money.
Well, the only thing that
So I'm in
concerned about-
favor of, maybe the town needs to do something else with it, I don't know.
The only thing that I'm concerned about is I don't wanna see anybody get hurt, you know.
I understand, I
And it's a
understand.
big hazard.
Nobody wants that.
Well, you know, not only is it the backstop, they played, that's been out there like that since April or so, and they caused that. They put banners up that didn't have enough vent holes through it, and the wind caught it and bent it over. And from what I was told, there was one of the representatives out there when they put the banners up and questioned that and told them that that was gonna happen. And they did it anyway because their sponsor was a big sponsor and they were getting big money. That's the reason they left it. And now it's caused that issue, and the poles are bent over, and they left the top rails up there. And as it went on over, those started coming loose, and they were still playing games out there with them kids right there underneath that home plate where that thing them pipes could have slid on out there, fell and hurt them kids. They took our batting cage down without approval. There was an interest of someone locally wanting to buy that if we ever decided to get rid of it, and they offered $700 for it. They never called and asked about taking it down, they never said anything about removing it or anything. And one day they just cut it off with a saw and just cut it off and left the pipe sticking out of the ground like this and let the net lay where it fell. So the grass and weeds were growing up in it and the pipes were all sticking out of the ground like this. And them kids were out there practicing, playing baseball and everything else on that thing. Another liability issue.
So Johnny, you don't necessarily have to wait, I think Jules gonna talk, you don't have to wait 90 days if there are very serious public safety issues.
Yeah, I mean, just from what you're talking about, under paragraph 12, the utility superintendent has the authority at any time to cease utilization out there. And so I think if you line that out, you cease it right now, and then at the same time you deliver the 90-day termination notice.
They need to make a finding first, that you find it unsafe and stop them.
I'm gonna be honest with you, I've gotten a lot of blowback for trying to enforce the rules on these guys, but if they were anybody else in this town, they would, I mean, I would already put a stop, I already would have red tagged those two dugouts and put an unsafe structure notice on the backstop. And I've held off, waiting to see what was gonna happen here, because, you know, they're not safe. And it's kinda funny, I got a call last night from a police officer. They saw a light out there and thought it was a flashlight, it was low to the ground. So, they went to check it out, and lo and behold, again, the water fountain's on out there, you know? And at one portion, I want you guys to think about this, enough water went on the ground that the average family here uses in a year, and they don't care. I have taken that hose off, put it back in the building, shut it off. I put a brand new valve inside that building, and I told them, Jeff was standing right there. I said, you have to shut this water off because kids will jack with this water fountain. So not only are they leaving the water fountain on, they're leaving the garden hose on. And it's like, you know, it's fine to use, but when you're done, put it back in the building and shut the water off. And I went out there this morning, I said, well, I'll just go out in the morning and verify. And of course I went out, no water was running when I went out there. I'm glad. But I picked the hose up and turned the water fountain on, and the water was still on again. But when I was out there, I just took a little walk around because there's a ton of trash out there. You guys can go out there and see it for yourself. But one of the things I told them was unacceptable in those dugouts, in which I know you commented on, Toby, was the nails sticking through the roof where the kids can hit their heads.
3/4
Yeah.
inch.
Well, what they're doing, what the kids are doing now, and I can't believe nobody does
Popping
it.
the nails up.
No, they're taking their Gatorade bottles when they're done drinking them and they're
Throwing
shoving
them.
them on the nails. So
I
now
see
there's
it.
water bottles and Gatorade bottles
I
stuck all
see
over
it.
the roof hanging down.
I see it.
Did you see it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I told Steve.
And I
specific-
told,
you know,
I told
the
them those
hump on
kids,
the
I
seat
told
there.
them, I told them those kids shouldn't be sitting on the helmet seat. They should be sitting
Yeah.
on the seat. And the
This
reason
much
I-
leeway from their head.
They are, and then
You're
some
talking
of
about
them,
3/4 inch
Yeah.
nail.
some of them were even sitting on top of the wall, and I was like, man, if they fall off the back of that wall, what I wanted them to do that they refused to do, which I think we should still do since the town owns it, is lower that back of that roof down to where it is mechanically fastened to the wall and doesn't have those posts at all. But like he said, I went to Lowe's and I bought the code approved bucket. I looked through the codes and, you know, they built it in a way that I wouldn't have built it, and they did submit plans, and it was unclear on their plans. I thought they were putting the posts in the ground. They did it a different way. So, not to screw them, because they already had the block laid in the concrete, I went through and found a code approved anchor that they could use, and they weren't cheap. You know, they're $22, and each one has 7 of them on it, each dugout. But I said, here, I said, you need to use this, and I even told them, you need to use this bolt, it needs to be anchored in the concrete this deep, and you guys can fix this. I mean, I literally gave it to them, and they went and bought a cheap thing, didn't you get the code approved fastener, did it to one dugout. If you go out there and look at it, it's still all leany. In the other dugout, it's even worse, they still haven't touched it. I mean, I don't know what you do.
I mean, with the discussion that's going on today, I think it's important that you red tag them tomorrow. Because
That's
it's
fine with
clear
me.
now, and it's been made clear to the council that there are liabilities out there. So now you are on notice of those liabilities. So if something happens after this and you haven't taken that step, then that liability then can be placed at your feet to some extent. So with the knowledge of that, I would red tag them, tell them that they're done out there under 12 until those things are fixed. But in the meantime, we just send them the letter saying in 90 days you're done, and the termination clause comes into play.
And if we can clear up, like I said, maybe my only concern, my biggest concern is that they're having other organizations come and use the property, because we're not sure, the town's not sure.
So I mean, I
Like
think,
Johnny said, so if we get that cleared up, that is a big deal.
And I
When's the gate supposed to be put up?
said
They're supposed to call me back tomorrow, the gate is done, but the guy that does the install wasn't at MoFab, and I'm supposed to get a call back tomorrow.
like I said, in this email that I sent, and I just read it to you guys over there, send Orange a 90-day written notice of termination of this contract. And like he's saying, send them the public safety notice and tell them that they have to stop immediately, and that way they can't play for another 90 days out there.
and I would recommend that you guys take
And I-
action
Yeah, you
on
can take a vote
that
on it.
and vote
And that-
on those steps,
Um,
so that it's in the record.
Do we need to also add in there the stuff that needs to be fixed within that 90 days? Because they did mess up the backstop, they did,
Fix it.
it needs to be fixed.
They won't fix the stuff while they're out there playing and stuff.
And it's all stuff that was just
So-
fine until they
Well,
took,
I think if we're gonna keep them here, if we want them to stay here, or give them the opportunity to stay here, they first of all need to be re-tagged, or red tagged for all safety infractions, okay? That's immediate.
for all of
And
it.
unless those safety infractions are fixed immediately, or until they're fixed, I don't care what they do, they're not coming on the ball team. Okay, and then during that time, hopefully they will have enough, to come over here and talk to us about the other infractions. And I think once we red tag them, maybe they'll realize that we're serious enough about this issue, that, you know, they're gonna straighten up and fly high, or they're gonna be gone.
Yeah, and to Jody's point, yeah, I would include all that. I would include that in the termination. And in addition to all this, here's what we believe the damages caused by your actions are, X, Y, Z. And then I would also, in addition to taking action if you want to tonight on that, I would rescind the action you took previously to amend the contract, because that's still on the table. And if you wanna do that, fine, if you
Stay
move
with
forward with it,
the,
but,
stay with the contract that we currently have,
That we
for
have
now.
right now.
For now.
right. And seek action to terminate it, or at least send a notice of termination.
Johnny, was the woman who was running the concession stand, was she doing it for profit
Yes.
and contracted with them?
Yes, and according to the emails back and forth, that is exactly what happened. And in the emails between, I'm assuming it was Steve, I didn't look a phone number up that the email was coming from, but it was back and forth from her, I believe, and Steve, and it was 35% of gross profits and this and that. And then there was another one from Shannon conveyed to her that, towards the end, that, they weren't gonna discuss any more about it, but he said that she agreed 45%. Now, the emails are going back and forth between them, and she shared those, so.
Jules, isn't it common practice in a lawsuit to list everyone that's named so that you don't miss, like, crossing any Ts or Is? So if Atlanta's on the contract with Orange, if she brings forward a lawsuit, her attorney would list all entities involved?
She would have to have a relationship with the town council, so if you do wanna list everybody, you wanna catch everybody in that net, but she was not brought to this council or approved by this council. And this is just from my understanding from looking at the emails.
We were unaware she was even there.
I mean,
She didn't know, yeah, right.
Yeah, she can, but I think that's something that we could pretty easily defeat with a quick summary judgment.
I got a feeling we're gonna get named in it, and we're just gonna have to prove that we were unaware they
If
were.
Atlanta has damages, would it behoove us, since I think isn't she the only one who has Heights kids on this team or something like that? If we were, would it behoove us to join with her and assist?
Yeah, I mean, it's, you've got two different legal theories here. So our issue is with our contract with Orange, and her issue is with her contract with Orange. And so, I mean, I don't know that you would want to necessarily team up and assist in that. You guys have enough on your own to proceed with how you want to proceed with. And the one thing that you always want to be careful of is joining into and jumping in the middle of somebody else's contractual disputes, because that's not part of your
Stay
business.
out of that quagmire, we didn't even know what was going on.
Right.
Well, and especially since nobody knew what was going on, we don't wanna give her ammo to then say, well, we obviously knew, so we should name that. So it's a little bit problematic.
It's just one more thing that they,
In that letter to them, we end the contract or whatever, will it specify that they can't start ripping stuff out of there that is either in the ground or?
it's in the
Well-
contract that they're supposed to leave it there, whatever they approve.
We don't have that.
Need to
That-
remind them of that.
Well, it's
That
not
was
in
part of
there.
the amendment, so
So
that's
that
why
is
when I
not-
first saw this contract, I kinda went, ugh, because none of the permanent improvement language that Johnny and you all discussed, was in there, but
You take it
that's
farther.
normally the case.
They were supposed to get permission to make the alterations and didn't.
That's
They were
right.
supposed to get permission to install the scoreboards and didn't.
They were supposed to come up
So I'll
here
tell them,
to a
you're-
town meeting
You're not touching
and
anything.
ask, get permission before they did anything, before they added the sod to the softball field, before they even worked on the dugouts, before they even put banners on the fence. They were supposed to come up here and talk to us first.
But just we would make that ask, but just be prepared that they'll say, well, where is that in the contract? And by the way, we did all this stuff and you guys let it happen. So you kind of,
What?
you can't argue now that it's the other way. So just be, that's what they'll say, but we can, of course, I mean, that's gonna be our position.
Here, I make a motion that we rescind amending the contract, as Manny has stated, and we, due to the safety issues out there under 12, we tag it.
So Johnny, I would
and
do
allow
two
them to-
motions if you.
Two? Okay,
So
I'll make
the
a motion
first
to
one,
rescind the amending, or the contract. I'll make that motion first.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
My second motion will be that we red tag it under the public safety issues under 12, and that we send them a 90-day notice of termination of the contract.
I'll second that.
All in favor? Aye.
And John, if you're able to get who they're having come in,
Who the other organization is? 'Cause I
that's
don't think
good.
I saw that.
If we can verify who, you said they had other organizations, they're at least subleasing it out to other
Yeah,
organizations.
in one of the text messages that was sent back and forth, it was Noblesville Youth Baseball.
What's it?
Noblesville
Noble-
Youth Baseball? Okay.
Yes.
All right.
And
We
there's a
can
guy
follow
named
up with
Daniel, and I called and spoke with him, and he was playing out there. And it's kind of funny, I don't know what happened, but he was with Noblesville, and he told me he's no longer with Noblesville. If you pull up Noblesville Youth Baseball, it'll give you a list of all the board members and everybody that's on different committees and everything right on there. And in one of the emails, One of the emails that she shared was, there was an issue while she was out there running the concession stand one night, and there was a upset parent that wanted to talk to somebody. So she sent an email to them, and they said, well, tell them that they need to talk to Daniel because we're not out there, it's not any of us.
Okay.
And he was with Noblesville Youth Baseball, and she has that in there, she's got it in there as NYB, the Noblesville Youth Baseball. And I called.
And it was this summer?
Yeah, it was somewhere around June. And I tried to make contact with him to verify, and it's kind of funny now that he has no longer been with, he has left Noblesville and is no longer with them, and he's joined these guys out here.
With Orange?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, the reason why is because we want to put everything in that 90-day letter. We want
And, and these are based off the emails that we have received.
all of these, and we're not gonna attach those emails, we're gonna say it's
With information that
this,
X, Y, Z.
We have received that.
this, and we have a 90-day termination.
They had a big turnout over the weekend. Did you see
Yeah, they
that?
did.
So is there any more discussion on Orange?
I can tell you the rumor. Thank you, Johnny.
I do have another question back to the emails. What is your recommendation to this council on how, from this moving forward, on emails,
Yeah.
we communicate?
A couple things, if you don't wanna use your personal email, I would say either get a different personal email that's only town business, that doesn't commingle with all your other personal emails. And then as far as emailing each other, you can do it individually to ask each other questions, and, Fred talking to somebody, this is just a part of doing the business, and he's, the president, you guys are town councilors, your job is to talk to people. You can't wait to do it every month. So you can email each other. I would just avoid emailing each other all together, all at once, and presenting information about certain things. You can email each other individually. I would do it on a separate personal account or a town of Atlanta account where it won't commingle with your personal emails. Anything else to?
Yeah, I mean, I think that works properly, and it's just the time, the changes in the world that we live in. It's the easiest way to communicate. Right now, now it's text messages.
And text messages are also subject to public disclosure. So, we signed up for it.
So it's okay to email individuals?
Yeah.
So we can email the same email, but
Yeah,
not
exactly.
not so that there's not a quorum.
Yeah, that's
So
essentially.
we keep it
Just to keep it under the radar of public
to
access.
one, but you can send it to each person the same one, but you gotta do it individually. Can't do it as a group.
Which is kind of crazy. When you-
Which is nonsense,
Doing the
right?
same
But it's-
thing, but you
yeah,
gotta
it's
do it
nonsense.
Right.
You gotta do it differently.
5 times.
But,
Copy,
he has this
print,
opinion that
copy,
says
print.
an individual email is not a serial meeting.
Right.
They call it the Bobby Knight rule, because that's how.
That's how they fire
Bobby
him.
Knight is the president.
Trustees met 2 at a time.
Yeah, so they didn't have the quorum stuff, but, yeah, he said those aren't serial meetings, but you can't email a quorum. I mean, and that's why there's so much confusion about it out there.
Well, I got one more question concerning the territory thing. And it's been bothering me, and maybe it just, you remember when we voted, the first vote, when Aaron was our legal? And we made an unanimous decision to, if we're not gonna do that, which sounds like right now, it's all, hasn't been determined yet, is that because it's public record? Because it's public record, and that reason only, I'd like to have that rescinded. It's never been rescinded. It just wasn't followed through. But if somebody wanted to check on that, look at it, they're gonna say, well, yeah, the Atlanta went and voted unanimous decision. I don't know if there's any kind of legality thing there, but for my own personal, I just soon rescind the thing like it never happened.
I hear what you're saying, but the one thing that I would hesitate in doing that, and you can do what you want, this is just my feelings when I hear that, is if you have a public record right now where you're saying you're going to rescind suing over that, fire territory, that will definitely be seen as a sign of weakness, and that you guys are gonna back down and she's getting away. And so that would be my concern about taking that step right now. You can always vote to take certain action, as long as that vote did not entail, take this action by this time, then it's still out there, so that if you decide to move forward, it's just reaffirming that initial decision. But, I mean, that's the only hesitation I would have to actually rescinding that is.
Could they make a motion to table it until they get further information?
And
Well,
it's essentially what's happened,
basically what
they
we've done.
tabled it anyway.
What I was looking at was if somebody looked past history and said, well, yeah, a year ago, 2 years ago, they voted for a lawsuit, and we just simply didn't follow through with it. And then, let's say next year or next month or whenever, we decide not to have a lawsuit, and that has to be voted on, and that will become public record.
Right.
Okay, now you got two public records here, one says you're gonna sue, one says you're not gonna sue. And then I suppose at that time you can rescind the first one.
Correct.
But then again, down the road, maybe a year or so, you know, this situation may even get worse after we decide not to sue, that we wanna
And you can always.
rethink it. And I'm just thinking how that's gonna look. First they're gonna sue, now they're not gonna sue, then they're gonna sue. That's my only concern. Whether we do or not is immaterial, but, you know, I'm looking at an image there, how, you know, what's,
And you've got a great record, because you've had, I mean, just sitting here in the discussion today about the thought process and the steps that you want to take prior to suit, and, you know, Jeff going down to speak with her and things of that nature, and bringing the numbers together to find out what the balance is gonna be. You have a great record to say, listen, yeah, we had voted to sue, and we're doing our due diligence, because we're not gonna rush into that. We wanna make sure we have everything lined out. If you decide not to sue later, and you rescind that, we did our due diligence, and we've determined that that's not the best course of action for the town of Atlanta. And then later, if something else comes up, then you bring that back up, and if you want to sue at that point, you go. And it is not uncommon for councils to reverse course like that, for several reasons. One, as more facts come to light and you gain more information, you are able to make a better determination as to what to do. You see the ramifications of not having that contract and whether or not you're going to be able to get your fire department going. And the other thing is going to be, councils change, you know? And so people get voted on and voted off, or people decide not to run again, and things of that nature, and that affects votes and arguments that are made. So I would be more concerned is if you voted to sue and then you never discussed it again, that would be a troublesome record for me. But from what I've seen, is you voted to sue and you've discussed it, you continue to discuss it, and that's what you guys are supposed to do. So I hear what you're saying. I would just be worried about that appearance right now, especially when we're still really contemplating a suit moving forward.
Got one question about how emails, if meant for town council, shared outside of the town council. Shared with people not on the council.
And the issue that you will have, so if an email is sent to all of you, again, whether or not that's been advertised or not, that is a public meeting.
Right.
And it's a public record, so
Okay.
it's out there.
Okay.
That's different than, you know, I would say this, every correspondence you get from us is gonna be privileged. And so you don't want to share emails that come from us. Once you start sharing those emails that come from us, you waive that privilege. And it's hard to say later, well, we really don't want people to see that. Well, you've already waived your privilege with your attorney. You've shared the confidential information that they've provided and the advice that they've given in this process. So I would never share the stuff with your attorneys. If it is if I'm on the council and you're emailing me and then I run around sharing it, unfortunately, you can be real mad at me. But unless it is a confidential type situation, I don't know that there's much that you can do.
That's it, and that's the key. If it's confidential information, it shouldn't be shared, and it might be a violation of whatever the confidential issue is, whether it's medical or something like that. The other issue is, it hurts your ability to do business as a council. I think that's probably the bigger issue. Because part of these discussions is, you email each other assuming one thing and then something else happens. I mean, I don't know if there's a specific issue, but those are the two things. It could be confidential, and that's a problem, or it could hurt your ability to do business and want to keep things confidential, either from other people, between your attorneys, or because of some other reason.
And I think the best information, and this is what I gave to department heads back when I was corporation counsel for a city, and the mayor, and anybody dealing with the city, and the councilmen, and every board of public works, and all of them. Don't put anything in email or writing that you do not want to see on the front page of a paper. Because if it's in the email and writing, then there's a possibility at some point it could end up on the front page of the newspaper. And so, again, I'm gonna make a social statement here, but email allows us, and social media allows us to be a lot bolder than we would be face to face.
Absolutely.
And say statements that we wouldn't make in public face to face.
That's right.
But, because you have that barrier, right? And so, it is, I stress that all the time, and we have to tell it to our own attorneys, because there's times when our internal documentation could become public. Never put anything in email that you don't want, that you would be embarrassed with, or would cause problems if it was on the front page of the paper. So I guess that's the best information, or best advice I could give.
Well, it's been a long meeting, I think a productive meeting. Any other discussion on any topics tonight?
The only thing, if you, whatever you want to include in that letter, in addition to what Johnny wrote out, just email it to me. Or call me. And we'll get the letter together. I'm gone the rest of the week, but we'll get it out early next week to you for review, and we can set it up.
The letter to Orange, correct?
To Orange.
But Andy can red tag that and cease immediately.
If he thinks it's a violation, yeah, I don't see why not.
Take pictures too, Andy.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Just in case they tear the tags off.
Okay, do I hear a motion tonight?
Real quick, just
Yep.
just to satisfy my own curiosity. Let me give you a scenario. If it's red, if the ball diamond gets red tagged tomorrow, they're notified, they can't come back until the fraction's fixed, okay? Some of them people have keys,
Well, what I'll
and is that something we
Well,
should?
it's not that they can't use I don't know, I'm gonna read our ordinance. The dugouts will not be able to be used. Depending on the unsafe structure, it could possibly say the facility. I mean, depending on which way it
It's a
fell.
pretty broad brush.
But definitely the big field. I
Yeah.
mean, it's leaning in towards the big field, towards home plate. But, I mean, that's gonna be for that section will be the extent of it.
Right, so
Well, we need
under
to
that
know
contract,
who's using it.
under that contract, the utility director can basically designate areas where they cannot utilize it. So if that backstop is falling down, I don't know how they're gonna play without home plate, because you're gonna change all the dimensions between the bases and everything. So, I mean, that field is out. If the dugouts are improper.
They're
you
on the
can't-
same field.
Okay, you can't, so, I mean, that field is essentially out.
The south field will still be playable.
But we need to know who's playing.
Well, like I said, right, these are all big issues. The huge issue for me is, I mean, God forbid you have somebody else playing on your property, you don't know
Yeah.
about it,
And
and
they don't have it.
20 kids get injured, and they don't have insurance, and they don't have you named.
Absolutely.
That's the kind of stuff that, and if your insurance, you get in a fight with your insurance about it, about covering it. If your insurance doesn't cover it, then you are in a world of trouble. That got me the most.
Well, they have
That
a
is
league.
terrifying.
They have a league, I'm sure they know who's gonna play,
Did they
per
cover
week.
the insurance?
So what, will we require
Yeah,
the,
if there's-
the names
Right.
of those, so you can check it to see with, I mean,
So-
how much you gonna
Yeah,
tell
so
us this-
the only way, their general liability policy names the town as additional insured, and that covers all of their teams. What it doesn't cover is outside organizations. So that's a problem, and yes, we would absolutely need them to, if they're gonna use that to, hey, every single week, we need a lineup of
Yes.
who's using the fields. And if we find out that it's not one of your teams, one of your organization's teams, and we're not insured, that's a problem.
And I think what can be done is, we can probably generate a letter to go out this week about that issue.
Would you please?
To say.
Well, I was gonna say, Shannon McVeigh is, I don't know if he's their official or unofficial appointed grounds guy, okay? So, I mean, I was gonna tag those things, tell them what they are. I'll probably scan them and send them in the email before I post them. But my question to you is, do you want me to tell them that the facility is not to be used until further notice, or just that field?
That contract allows for that area, I think. Under 12, I think you're able to designate areas which you believe to be unsafe, and they will be prevented from utilizing that area that you believe to be unsafe. So that's why I think it's best that we get this letter out about those others, because what that does is it adds a line of defense if somebody does get hurt, saying,
Well-
we notified, once we knew about this.
In my plan, to take it a step farther, is put some barricades up, just so they can't say we were unclear.
Yeah.
Yeah, from that area, but I
Right.
think.
No, I'm
if
talking
you-
about that area.
Yeah, right, then, I mean, if that's your determination, that's fine.
I'm gonna tell them that, the north field.
Yeah, would caution tape be acceptable?
Yeah, I'll do barricades with caution tape and tell them.
And
this
it'd be
north field.
interesting to see the response that we get from that letter. That's gonna really tell.
Is Steve still the same contact for that letter?
Yes,
Okay.
as far as I know.
He hasn't talked to me since I told him of the issues
Well,
back.
I'll address it to Steve and, their corporate representative. I'll just do both. And I'll email it to Steve and send it by mail to both, so that way we're covered. But yeah, that's a good idea to get the other organizations playing the insurance issue out front, and then we'll do the termination.
Which was something he was supposed to bring to us when other people played on this field table.
Any other discussion?
I just want to thank everybody that was so involved in the festival. I know they worked hard, and I seen Andy and Murray out at 11 o'clock, and I'm sure there were others. But as a goal, that doesn't get carried off overnight.
Thank you, Neela. Thank you, Neela.
No, that Neela brought that up, thank you. I'm so tired, but we need to talk about what happened with the electricity and figure out.
Yeah, we need to do that quickly.
Yeah, I mean, or have a special meeting, whatever you think.
Let's go ahead and, I don't know.
Thanks for reminding me.
Yeah, I don't know if all were aware or not, but we had a power outage Saturday for approximately 5 hours. It involved our food vendors, if I'm correct, on the east side
Right here.
of
Do
the
you know
railroad.
exactly which food vendors it was,
Yes.
Murray?
I do.
It was everybody this side of the railroad tracks, including the ones at the old firehouse lot.
Including the old town garage.
So it's both sides of the street?
Mhm.
Okay.
Now,
Okay, so
somebody
we
said
know.
the Cinnamon Roll ran, lost power.
Not
Yeah,
from
nothing
us.
to do with
Private
us.
property.
Oh,
It has
okay,
nothing to
okay.
do with us.
Okay, that
This
just
has
helps.
nothing to do, just so everybody's clear.
This is zero.
This has nothing to do with our electrical services, our equipment, or our ability to provide power. This was an issue with Duke Energy. And there was like 14 houses out at the same time, so it wasn't.
And I did not
Question.
call him.
The question is this tonight, in the direction I know that Robin is seeking. is do we want to compensate these food vendors for their 5 hours of lost sales and product in some way? I know the rental is,
I've talked to 2 food vendors, it's $4.90, I talked to 2 food vendors, one guy averaged, he said he lost, like $1,200. All of them were throwing product out. I know, wait a minute, the popcorn guy lost like $5.50, something like that. The one food vendor that I talked to, and it's gonna get blurry, I mean, he was so nice about it though, he said, you know, last year was the only year he did not have electrical problems. In the past, his electrical problems were, you know, I know.
His electrical
I know,
problem,
but
well-
what I'm saying is, we need to get out in front of this in some way, whether, I mean, we find out, we talk to the food vendors that were out of power, and find out what they actually lost, what they feel like, you know, get their thoughts on it, so they know that we want them to come back, and we want them to be satisfied. I don't know if, I mean, we have event insurance, I don't know how far we wanna go with it, but we have vendors that need to know that we are on the job and that we're looking at it and that we care about it.
How many vendors total? You know?
10.
10 vendors is affected.
Are you thinking along the lines of reimbursing cash, or are you thinking about making some kind of deal next year when they come?
I don't know,
Like free
that's
rental
why I
or-
wanna talk
or
about it,
something
I just
like
feel
that.
like they need to know that we care that happened to them. I mean,
We
that's-
care. Murray and I were there immediately. I made 4 calls to Duke and had 2 trucks here in 35 minutes. I mean, if that ain't taking it seriously, I don't know what is. You know,
what
I
is,
still,
Andy, and I appreciate that,
Right.
but at the same time, they're coming here, and I think they're owed something.
well, it better be,
By
in
Duke.
my opinion, it better be minimal, because what if it would've been like on 256 when the people crashed in the power transfer station and the whole town's dead? Are we gonna give money to everyone in town?
We can't,
I know.
we can't do
And
that.
as far as this guy without his power, and I'm telling you, this falls under the building code. I'm done with these people not following the rules. They don't bring the proper equipment, they don't hook up right, and then they wanna complain about problems with power. There's nothing wrong with the power that's available. It is their equipment and their lack of proper equipment. And you go talk to the people that bring the proper stuff, they never have a problem.
What would be,
But
what's
this
your
is
thought if
Duke's
we
problem.
wrote these
Right.
vendors, I'm sure you've got their addresses, wrote these vendors and explaining to them, you know, how sorry we are that they lost product on it and all, and that we would be willing to, make some kind of deal with them next year when they come. I'm kind of feeling like we owe them something, but we really don't owe them nothing.
Right.
I understand the situation. The problem being with Duke and the hours it took to be without service was the fact that I guess Duke had to go get the transfer, and then they had to fight the traffic to get in and all that. But we have no control over that, but yet at the same time,
In good faith.
in good faith, I don't want them thinking that we're just a bunch of heartless, money hungry town, you know.
Right, because
But
they're
to
gonna.
pay a guy $1,200, you know.
No, I
No, no,
know.
That's way, you
No, no,
know,
no.
I'm suggesting that.
even a percentage.
Look,
Give
straight
them
across
half-
the board.
Give
Give them all the same
yeah,
amount,
give
straight
them
across
half,
the
give
board.
them Saturday's rent back.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Saturday's rent. Half of the rental.
I do think
Or-
it's fair to consider in all of this, and I know this is not to take away from any of this, but as hot as it was, nobody was buying hot
And
food
we told them,
anyway.
we did talk about
So
that.
so they can say they're down $1,200 for that 5 hours,
No,
but
and we
they
talked
would have
about
been
that.
down anyway.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
And again, it's not our
That's true.
fault. I'm okay entertaining the idea. Not that it's completely up, it's not up to me,
Well,
but I'm
good
okay
faith,
with
you know,
entertaining the idea of giving them something. But I don't even know if it needs to be, give them $100, $150. I mean, it wasn't a whole day they were out,
200.
and
Well, I'm more in
for
favor
even
of,
that,
instead of
that's
paying
fine.
in cash, is just simply notifying those ones concerned,
Give them a
saying
discount
next year when they come,
Give you a
that we will
discount.
give them Saturdays rent free.
Or give them a discount.
You never know
I
what's
mean,
gonna
is that
happen
really encouraging
between
them to
now
come
and
back
then.
next year?
Well, we want them to come back.
They
you
didn't
know,
lose
if some of them get bent out of shape over it,
You guys,
then
they
not
didn't
come
lose the
back.
whole day.
They did.
Give $200 each.
I think we need
That's
to.
I
not
don't
the
think
full
we should,
day.
I think we should talk about a discount for next year.
I think a discount for next year.
Do you have a problem, since it's entered into the books, to try and refund it back out in
We'll
writing?
give them $200 off when they come back next year.
Yeah, they got you this down
And not
next
to-
year.
You know, and Duke, so everybody knows, once the event was shut down, Duke came back and rerouted the power lines in his alley to put them on another grid in town
To avoid any
to
future
avoid
issues.
future issues or repeat. But the transformer was probably 50 years old that went out. I mean, it was a fluke thing that happened. It was just a fluke. It's time to wear out.
If I could make a suggestion, and it's gonna make for a longer meeting for you, not tonight, but in a different night, is oftentimes the vendors, when we've had different festivals that I've been involved with, had issues, if you invite them to a meeting, say, we are going to discuss the issue that arose on Saturday of the festival. You're invited to come and share your experiences, and we're gonna talk about it at that time. But one thing you don't want to do is, because they may, if you just say, here's this much money, that may be, they're offended by it at that point to say, how come you didn't do more? But if they're here to hear the whole discussion, and then we are able to talk about, listen, this wasn't a town issue, this was the Duke issue, this is what they did. And really, while it was a Duke issue, it wasn't as if Duke was negligent in that process, so they wouldn't be able to get anything there. But despite that it's not the issue here, you're willing to take this step of giving them a discounted thing the next year, or a half of a day's rental or something like that, and they hear all of that, you can appease them, they know that they can come to you, that you're willing to listen to them, so that they stay as an interested vendor to you in the future. I mean, it's just an example. I don't know that, I think that might go further, even though it pushes it down the road a little bit, when they know that you're serious about considering the issues involved.
Because, you know, a lot of vendors come, they hit around, and there's no guarantee they even sell any product at all.
Right.
You know,
Maybe we could invite them and have, sit at one of our meetings, put on the agenda to have them here at a future meeting, and then offer, discuss it, let them know.
We
And then,
we need to have a festival wrap-up meeting anyway.
And I think
it's gonna be
that's the-
longer.
Do,
and offer them something, let them, feel better, and then,
Pick a date and we'll send out a letter and invite them all.
a lot of them, may not even be local or around this area, and they might be doing festivals and stuff,
Yeah.
not even be able to make it.
But then you can at least, when they look
They
for a
say
handout, you go,
receipts.
well, we had a meeting.
If we
We're
do
ready.
it like on a Tuesday night, do it like at 5, because it'd be.
Well,
a
our
long-
next meeting's the 10th, next month's the 10th and the 24th.
a lot of them are way out of town, and I'm not even sure they'd be willing to come to meetings.
Yeah,
But they might make it feel good that they were invited to.
Or they can send us a letter back.
Right.
But at least you
But
take it. the
at least
effort.
they know.
Right.
When do you guys want to do it?
But might as well have
Jennifer,
it.
when do we go to conference?
So we have it on the 10th, before our regular meeting.
The 10th or the 24th?
Let's do it the 24th, that gives us some time.
That'll just time to get all the bills in.
will that be our festival wrap-up meeting as well?
Yeah, let's do it like, if we do it at like 5, that gives us 2 hours before the regular meeting, don't you think?
So you're gonna have
3
a-
hours is entirely too long.
You're gonna have a meeting at 5 on the 24th?
If
And then
that's what
regular
we're
town
gonna-
meeting at
Yeah,
7.
5 to 7, a festival wrap-up, regular town council meeting at 7 on October the 24th. question about emails. Can she send us an email to all